Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Eternal X Wolfpack Paranormal Podcast. I am your host, Sean Ellis, and tonight we have an amazing guest. She's sitting backstage. I actually had a chance to meet her at Broadhead Manor, along with her boyfriend for the second time, Mr. Nathaniel Elwell. Well, yes, we have Morgan Cadwell in the back, and we will be just talking with her today. Also, I would like to thank Joshua Robert Moore for the theme song for the Eternal X Wolfpack Paranormal. And definitely go check him out at Earth Core Audio. He's got some amazing stuff. And might even have him make one for season 5 because I'm only booked for one more episode. And I'm going to take a break for a little while. And then I may have some special episodes come up that you may see me live with several other teams here in the next few months. But definitely go check out Earth Core Audio and Joshua Robert Moore. He does an amazing job. So let's bring on Ms. Morgan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How you doing tonight?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good tonight, for sure. Let's see who we got in the comments already. We got Miss Ash Davis is in the house.
Hey, Ash.
So, Morgan, you're kind of coming into all this stuff. And how did you get started in the paranormal field?
The field itself, I'm still fairly new in, but I've had my gifts or recognized them since I was about 3. Kind of tried to push them away and block them out for quite a while. But about 3 years ago, something just clicked and I was like, I know I'm supposed to do this. So I decided to just fully embrace my gifts to the best that I could. Still working on the confidence factor because that was part of the reason I blocked it off. But I feel like that's an issue with so many people, whether they admit it or not. But about 3 years ago, I started going to Paracons and I would just meet people and hang out because it just felt comfortable to me. And I was able to just walk up to people, talk to them, have conversations. And a lot of times my readings just kind of like fluidly come out in the moment. In talking to people, and it kind of helped me boost my confidence a bit to push myself out there.
I can definitely agree. Hello, Nathaniel.
Hey, Nate.
I can definitely agree with the fact of the confidence part. I mean, right after I turned 21, I had some experiences and seen some things at the time, and I would always see shadows at the time, and I just pushed it off, never really thought much of it. And then about the time I got married, going through the second round of getting baptized, I would start seeing dreams because I was going back to church all the time as well. And I would see things that would come true, and it would really start to bug me at times. Just like, I don't know if I really want to dig into this. And like you, I pushed it aside. And then when my daughters were born, I noticed they were kind of an empath, which I didn't know the terminology at the time. And they were seeing things and started intriguing me again. And then after my divorce and cage fighting, football coaching, all that stuff, I started getting into the paranormal field. And I decided once I joined the first team I was on, I'm going to go all out and I'm going to embrace everything. So, and when it did, it just come full bore. And like I said, I had a really good Reiki master and I have a really good shaman teacher, and been doing that for the last 3 years and constantly learning.
Yeah. No, it's interesting when you block it out because it always just keeps popping back. I mostly blocked mine out because of other people, which is probably stupid. But it was the confidence thing. Like, people would use me as a party trick, but then behind closed doors, they'd be like, oh no, you're full of shit. You don't actually do what you say you claim to do. That was the main reason. But I mean, in all actuality, I've been doing this for over 20 years. It's just actually pushing myself out there is only the past 3 years.
Yeah, you said using you as a party trick. So when you were growing up, I assume you were seeing premonitions and kind of seeing things back then as well.
Yeah, so when I was younger, my earliest memories, I was 3. I was riding my little rusty tricycle in the backyard, but then right next to me there was this little kid, around the same age looking, in a bright red tricycle that would ride with me. Honestly, looked like the paintings of baby Jesus because they had short blonde curly hair. We'd never speak, but we'd always play, and I knew nobody else could see them. And then the next most vivid one was in middle school. This was when I was sleeping. It was the first time I got visited when I was sleeping. But before then, I'd have some premonitions, silly things like there was one premonition I had for it was my grandfather. It was on Christmas Day, and this was like the summer before. And we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden, he put a bright red bow on his head and started like playing with his dentures because they freaked me out. So he used to make his dentures flap around. And then he did it that following Christmas. Yeah, but also it's a lot of it because I didn't want to tap into their energy and refused to read them.
And
So
I
of
can agree.
course,
I can agree with that too.
yeah. Um, but the next most vivid memory with spirit was my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and the last time I saw him, he was in an Alzheimer's unit. But I went to sleep one night, and he came to visit me when I was sleeping. He was talking like he was before he got diagnosed when I remembered him being, healthy. And he said, it's okay. You're just not going to be able to see me anymore. Because I'm not going to be here when you wake up. And I got woken up the next morning and I was told that he passed when I was sleeping. So I've always seen them. But like I said, the whole confidence thing, because people love when you can read them, but then I'm sure you know to a certain point you start reading people, they want it all the time. There is a lot of
Mhm.
people who do get addicted to it. It is something that most people, they'll either hop around or they'll find somebody who reads them and they'll just cling to it. And every time you see them, they just want you to read. But then when you don't, all of a sudden, even though you've done it before, you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. Um,
And the funny thing is, once you read them and then it actually happens, and then later down the road, because I've just had this experience as well, because I had a coworker that had some bad stuff happening to him, and he thought he was in the clear at the time, and I said, "The darkness ain't left yet." I said, "You still got some coming." And he finally reached out to me about 3 weeks ago, and he said, "Sean, you wasn't wrong." He says,
yeah.
"The darkness is still here," and I said, "You've got to quit manifesting all that bad stuff." And I said, "You got to start thinking positive and start changing things because otherwise it will stay."
hmm Yep. And I tell people all the time, Nathaniel will attest to it. Words are power, thoughts are power. So if you want something to change, you have to speak about it and think about it in a different way.
Yeah, it's most definitely. I mean, I know the guys at work where I work at joke around a lot. And I keep laughing at them. And I said, those manifestation of those words is going to come back and bite you in the ass one of these days. I
Yeah.
said, I know you're joking. And yeah, I can take a good joke once in a while, but I know what it does. I know what it'll do to you. And it'll end up coming back and haunting you.
hmm
And people don't get it, especially when you can read energy. Now, do you actually read the people, or do you read the energy off the people?
You know, that's a good question. I wish I knew because I will even sit there with Nate all the time because the things that I get sometimes I have no clue because I will get things that are from people's future. So I'm assuming I'm reading the people to a point because I've had people who will call me a day after, a month after, sometimes even a year after saying something that I said to them when I was technically doing a reading for them came true that they didn't know about. Um, but the thing is, I don't just read people and energies. Like I said, spirit always comes through as well because, well, not always, but most times spirit does come through with it. So I'd say if I had to think, if I had to say what it was, I guess I was reading the people because actually now, John, now you've confused me even more. I don't know what I do.
Well, people do see through spirit, so that is possible. And I myself, I read through energy.
Mhm.
I read the energy off the people because you can actually tell 100% if you are going to get along with that person or not. You can tell when you walk in a room certain people that just don't like you. You can tell by just the energy around them if you can get along with them, and it pretty well stands out, and it actually holds true. So I mean, everybody's different. So yeah, it's possible. I mean, you could be very unique and actually be able to read both.
Yeah. I'm not sure because I am one of those people that sadly I think everybody's nice. So maybe it's just I ignore the energy. I'm not sure, Sean. Now you're giving me too much to think about.
I know. We started talking there at Broadhead, and we started digging into some conversations and stuff, and we started digging into the Reiki. And I asked you because I know when the first time I met Nate, given the way we practice, we just have an opinion that reads both. Yeah, okay. Hang on a second. Finds this. I do find cemeteries calming. I do like being
They
in
are.
cemeteries. I do like, and I actually like walking in the dark, especially down dark paths or going into dark places. I
Yeah.
like that. But the first time I ever met Nate, I did some Reiki with him and did some energy work where he could feel that energy on his fingers, and it freaked him out. Kind of looked at me like, shook his head. He couldn't explain it because I know Nate loves to debunk stuff. And he's sitting there looking at me, and I was like, I don't got nothing, Nate. I don't have anything. And I know I asked you when I said it, did he ever say anything to you about it? And
Yeah, I don't recall it because I go to Reiki. I try to go to Reiki at least once a week to get it done. My friend Robin is the one who does it. And I tell him because I don't know how else to describe it. I'm like, I've not taken the courses to do it. I love when you get freaked out though. You make the funniest faces. It's enjoyable.
he does. It's awesome. I like it. But I also like the conversation when I do talk to him because we can really dig into things.
Yeah. No, because I've never done it though. Actually, at Broadhead, so there when we were doing the investigations when we were running some of them, the one that we did on Saturday, there was this one guy in the group that kept saying, "I'm cold. No matter where I go tonight, I've been getting this cold thing." So it was the first time I actually really tried to move energy, and I was trying to push the cold away, and he was like, "I don't know how you're doing that, but you are putting such hot heat on me." And everywhere I moved my hands, he's like, "I can feel it moving up." He was like, "That's insane." I'm like, well, I don't know. I've never done it before. I just figured I'd try it out. So I guess to a point I can do it. It's just I've not been trained in Reiki.
Yeah. My Reiki master said when we started working together, she said, you just pick up this like a duck in water. She says it's unreal. She says you just pick it up, and then she gave me the Menaki rights, which that would really be good for you because you said something about a little bit of anxiety once in a while,
Hmm.
and the Menaki rights help you ground to everything and convert that energy or good energy, vice versa, however you want it. And one of the things that I discovered when I was going through the rights is the fifth right is actually communicating with the other person without really saying anything. It's through energy. And that's where the bond starts in the fifth right. And nobody understood that. And I explained that to her, and she's like, how did you get that? And I was like, watch. And I was showing her, and she goes, I didn't even know that. So we all learn something new all the time to teach other people.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
interesting though, because I know Nate and I we'll call and we'll be like, "Well, I was just about to say that," or we'll send a message and it's the same thing. Because I've even called him before, and this was a while ago, but I called him and I was heading back to Massachusetts. I'm like, "So you outside smoking right now?" And he's like, "What? Why?" I'm like, "Because I just smelled cigarettes. I don't smoke." And he happened to be outside. But it's interesting because we'll send messages and he'll be like, "Are you psychic or something?" Because I was just thinking that.
So here's the thing that I've learned over the last several years, and I've actually linked it to energy work.
Mm.
And with my girlfriend that passed away here 3 years ago, she was kind of a learning curve with me with some stuff because she didn't really believe it, but she always asked questions. So one thing I discovered a long time ago, and if you hook up with the right person, let's say you and Nate, and you got that bond, that energy that you've shared, if it keeps getting stronger, you actually pick up on their thoughts.
Mm.
And it freaks people out because, like you said, you know what they're doing before they even do it. Because I was dating another person at the time, and she said, I'm going out with my friends and etc. But the funny thing about it, she got to a point, you have this feeling something's not right, but she never told me where she went. And I ended up finding her, and it freaked her out
Yeah.
because I honed in on her. You know, she was like, how did you know that? And I would start seeing dreams of things that happened to her and say, hey, did this happen? And she goes, who you been talking to? I ain't been talking to anybody. You know, it's that energy connecting between you and that person. And that's some things, you know, they say, how do they say, intimacy should be only with one person, because once you get more than one person or one companion, you get everybody's thoughts. It makes it a cluster. It makes it just a twisted mess. And people don't get that. And then they wonder why their world is chaotic, because they've got everybody else's thoughts and everything else with them.
Yep. No, and people never factor that in. Like when they, you know, get further into a relationship, they don't think of every step further you take, the closer you're bonding with this person on like every level possible.
Have you ever been able to stop time during that time? Because that is very interesting.
I have not, but I can't say that I've tried.
It's like, to me, at the time it happened, it's like you're there forever. But then all of a sudden, when everything's said and done, it's only been like 20 minutes, but it seems like you've been there the whole day. I can't
say I've done that.
It's very, very unique. And it seems like that energy bond, when you get that bond, you pick up on a lot of things. It's like, you know what they're doing before they even say it, like you said, and it freaks people out.
Yeah, I can. I enjoy when that happens, though.
you gotta love it, because it's fun. It's like, even when I go to a bar sometime, I'll do what I did, Nate, you know, do that energy work. They said, cool bark trick. How you doing it? Just the same way I'm doing it. Put your hand up. And they was like, that's just weird. Because I said, if I can feel your hand, if you can feel my hand from like 10 feet away, you owe me a beer. So they give me a beer. So I do that for fun, just to get their attention once in a while. It's kind of a good thing to do. But energy is very unique. Can you see spirit?
Yeah, so I see it different ways. Actually, another part of the reason I kind of cut some of it out was because I was discouraged when I asked for help, because it was back in the day of having to look things up in the library. Couldn't always find things online. And I had one spirit that really creeped me out, because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Sixth Sense.
Mm-hmm.
With that, okay. So the way he would see spirit, but he would see them how they looked after they died. Yep. That's how at one point I was seeing a lot of the spirits. And when you're like 10, 12 years old, that's terrifying. I mean, it can be terrifying as an adult as well.
Well, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. But I do still see them. Nate and I were doing a practice, and that was maybe 2 months ago. And that's the first time in that practice, which I can explain the practice later if you'd like, because I've been told maybe I shouldn't go in that deep, but it's how I do it. Anyways, that's the first time in a while I've seen a spirit actually show themselves to me the way that they looked when they passed. But the way I see spirits, sometimes it's like out in the, in the real world with everybody else. A lot of the times they'll show me like a photograph, or it looks like one of those old movies like you see in the clips of the Wonder Years. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it's just them like standing there and I can see them, or it's a lot of the times though, it's I can sense their energy, but it's also me like, well, I can sense you, so I don't really need to, full on go in and open myself up to see you, because for some reason when I sense them, I just know what they look like, if that makes sense.
Right. You can feel the energy, you can feel the form. To me, there's only been 2 times I've actually seen a full apparition 100% dead on. One was at Broadhead Manor, the first time I was ever there. And Bill was giving us a tour of the place of where not to go and where to go, because they just opened up and they were getting organized. And I could have swore, because everybody was standing around down by the boiler room, and I could have swore Bill walked up the steps and his dog followed him up the steps, and he kept going. I was like, well, why is everybody just standing here? So he walked up the stairs, and I thought it was Bill. Walked up the steps, took a right. And I was like, okay, I'm following Bill. I went up the stairs, took a right. The dog's sitting there in the hallway. All the doors are padlocked from the outside. Nobody there. Mm-hmm. He said, I seen the janitor that day. I was like, okay. He said he normally goes out that door. I was like, all right, cool. The second full apparition I ever seen is after my girlfriend passed away. I came home and I'm sitting in the kitchen right now on an island, and my dining room sitting here off to the right of me. And I come in and it was jet black in the house because I didn't turn the lights on. And I was talking to my mom on the phone, and I just about ready to flip the light switch. And I seen her standing right in my dining room. And she looked just like the day she didn't look ill, but she looked like she did standing there, but her hair wasn't blonde. It was silver gray. And I said, "You have more power than you know what to do." And she nods her head. I said, "You come to see me and make sure I was all right." She nods her head. I said, "You're coming to check on also everybody else that you care about." And she nods her head. I said, "You'll be around here quite often." She nods her head. And she turned around and she walked straight out my front door, right through the wall, and left. And I'll never forget that day because it dropped me to my knees, and I was talking to my mom on the phone, and I'm like, it made me cry. It was that powerful. It made me cry. And 3 days later, I ended up getting a dog. Somebody brought me a dog. And she always said, the dog kept her out of trouble when she was going through her divorce and everything like that. And it kept her sanity. And I ended up getting a dog. And 3 days after the dog was here, at 3:00 in the morning, the dog started barking. And all of a sudden, my ears just started ringing. Bad at 3:00 in the morning. And I could hear her voice as plain as day. She said, "Sean," she says, "my mom and dad's not going to let you come and get anything. They're not going to let you come and get any of the stuff that we collected, put together, or anything else." And she said, "Just remember what we had was real. I'll always love you. And promise me one thing." And I'm not going to say what it is on here, but I've got to take care of something before I die because she doesn't like it. It pissed her off royally. Mm-hmm. And then she also showed me how to cross the veil. She said I was capable of crossing that veil anytime I wanted to. And every time I wanted to go see her, I could go do it. And I do go see her. I cross that veil and I see her when I just wanted to go talk to her. And people don't understand. You can do that.
Yeah.
She is very accurate with her descriptions, right down to the money on a ship and had no clue it was involved. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Nathaniel, the one she did for me without even meaning to tap, it was fucking wild. Yeah, but we are so capable of doing so many things and people don't even realize it. And if we train our mind to do it, we can do anything.
Hey, Christopher Michael. Oh, it was Derek. I call him Christopher Michael. He looks like a Chris, doesn't he?
Derek's unique. I like Derek. He's funny.
No, he is.
We'll be hanging around here pretty soon on an investigation. But yeah, and also, when I see a spirit, it's kind of like seeing heat come off the asphalt in the middle of summer. That's how I see energy in a spirit. So, hey, what's up, bro?
I had a gremlin, so I missed the last part of that. I'm sorry.
Oh, when I see a spirit, normally, like I said, I've only seen 2 full apparitions ever, and I see it like heat coming off the asphalt. So it kind of looked like you see Predator in a movie when he's cloaked. That's how I see spirits in front of me.
He does look like a Chris. No, that's neat that you see it like that, though. I've not heard that before.
But yeah. So I know we got to talking about doing some energy work and some Reiki. And we were talking about when we were down at Broadhead a little bit, what I was doing at the Masonic Lodge. Haunted Happy Hour actually filmed this clip, and Eternal Paranormal actually had the camera. There was like $3,000 SLS that picked this up, and it's got heat signature. But this shows how energy transfers to people right here. And I've showed this before.
think it's so neat that you can actually, like with certain devices, catch how you can see it moving.
Because you can see her hand is turning the same color as mine.
Hmm.
And I'm like 5 foot away from her at the time.
That's so funny because that's the receiving hand that he's doing it to right now. And that receiving hand is lighting up.
Oh, wow.
And he's not touching her. Do you see that, guys?
Mm-hmm.
That night was actually her 28th birthday.
I'm so sorry. I had a gremlin again.
I said that night was actually her 28th birthday when she came on that investigation, and I actually did some energy work with her.
Oh, okay. You know, I think I know what causes all the gremlins when I pop in on podcasts and everything. Because I feel like even just talking about energy and all this stuff, it builds up the energy, and spirits and everything already love the electronics. So when you talk about them, I feel like it makes things go a little wonky.
Yeah, we can do that, Derek. Just name a day.
They're not even touching. You see, it looks like his hand.
Like they're touching.
Oh, his hand is kind of pointing towards one.
Do you want to answer Nate's question first, or?
What's are your all questions for both opinion on moving spirits over and not ready to move on? I don't move them on unless they ask me to move them on.
Yeah, I've not moved one on, but I would never attempt to move a spirit on that wasn't ready to go.
But I will say this. I have had some spirits that were very uncooperative, very mean, attached to certain people that I did take out and take care of and move them on. And I actually put them in salt and disintegrated their energy because they would not move on. But they were doing harm to a 12-year-old child, and I didn't believe in letting it sit around and keep bothering a 12-year-old either. So
I feel like that's a completely different scenario, though, as opposed to some people who just go to locations or people's homes. If it's causing harm, that's a completely different thing.
yeah, if that's the only time, I mean, I've moved probably entrapped, I should say, probably 12 bad ones and gave them new homes because of the fact of doing harm to a child or being malevolent in the house.
Mhm.
So I actually condoned or actually said that was right to do that. But otherwise, if they're there, I've had a investigation where an older lady, she was in her 70s. She actually called me. She says, "I've got some stuff here in the house, and would you come check it out?" And it's just right after I started the new team, so I had some rookies, and I said, "Meet at the house." And we got there. The lady was nervous. She was so worried we would find something evil in her house. And the first thing I said when I walked into the house, I said, "I know it's nothing evil." And she goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because your house feels like it's a warm house. It feels homey. It's not nothing bad." So we stuck up some of our equipment and we put laser grids up, and we started seeing shadows pop up, and we went outside, started debunking all the shadows going across the windows and everything else. And we put up an SLS in the back and put up a voice box in the back, and we started getting activity in the back room. And it said demonic, devil, and started laughing and stuff. And 9 times out of 10, when I hear that, it's a kid spirit trying to scare the hell out of you. They're trying to scare you, make you leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked back there, and I felt the energy wasn't bad. And and stuff. And the elderly lady says, I hear something talking back there. Can I go back there? I said, sure. So she left her walker in the kitchen. I walked her into the back area, and she goes into that room and she goes, hello. And it goes, hello. It talked back to her. And then it said, old. And she goes, I'm not old, and they started giggling. So 100% we figured out it was kids.
Yeah.
And she ended up going back into the kitchen. She goes, Sean, what are you going to do with those spirits? And I said, we can get them to leave light. But I said, one, they're not really causing any problems. And I said, two, the things that you're starting to experience and the things that we're seeing here, they're looking for attention. So when they tug on your pant leg that you feel, or your cabinets are opening, or you hear something knocking, they're wanting attention because they're kids. I said, play a song, play some music. She goes, I play music every day. I said, play some music. And I said, pick up a kid's book and read it. And she goes, okay. She says, but if I ever have a problem, I got your number right here on my fridge. I said, okay. So I let it go about 3 weeks. And I finally went back to her house and I knocked on the door and she opened it up. She gave me a big hug. She goes, Sean, she said, I'm so happy you stopped by. She said, I was going to sell this house, but now that I know what's here, she says, I'm not leaving. And she says, I don't have any problems anymore.
Yeah.
And, that to me was the greatest thing, to me, and made me feel amazing, is in the fact that I got to help her. So, but, that was, that's the reason why I do investigations is to help the people and let them understand what's going on. And, that one was a good one for me.
Yeah, I feel like so many people, because of certain TV shows, have this fear that everything's demonic when it's not. Oh, yeah. So this practice. So when I mentioned the first time I saw a spirit with that showed me how they looked when they passed. So the way I'll start off with how we practice. So the way that Nathaniel and I practice is he literally goes, okay, are you ready? And I go, yep. And he goes, okay, start. That's all it is. I don't know what type of location. I don't know if it's a person. I don't know where we're going. So I just sit there and I close my eyes and I get to the point that I feel like I am tangibly able to touch the walls. I feel my feet on the ground. To the point that certain spirits have noticed me when I'm walking in their space. But I was in one room and it was a bunch of like weird kind of empty rooms. And there was this one room that there was, I saw a girl from behind. She was a blonde girl with like curly hair. And she seemed sad, but she didn't seem like mean or anything. But when she turned around, her eyes were oozing. So that's the first time recently that the spirit came through again. And I saw how they passed. And actually, Shelly from EVP, I was telling her about that story. And Nate already said it was the H.H. Holmes house. And she was like, oh, there's a little known fact that he did kill 2 girls. He murdered 2 girls and poisoned them. And one of the things that happens when they pass away is their eyes start to ooze. Which makes complete sense because at first Nathaniel was like, well, there was a thing that they dropped in acid, but her face was still there. It was more her eyes.
Right.
But anyways, I was walking through the house and I was like, it's weird. There's a man who dresses like he's an older man, but he's not an older man, but he very much shows people that he's an older man and it doesn't make sense. I said, but also I'm in this living room. It feels like it's a living room, but it's completely empty. There's not even a chair or a couch. But when I said couch, it was a very deep, raspy man's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nathaniel decided to tell me that it was H.H. Holmes' house, who I did not know who that was. And that he used to dress up as an older man to try to get people to come to his hotel or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that is who it was who was speaking through me. So Nathaniel's no longer allowed to choose locations like this. I'm sure there's more to it. I don't typically remember many of my practices or my readings, but that one I remembered because I did not. Well, first of all, the first time a spirit came through to me where I could see how they passed, because it'd been a while. And when a man speaks through me, I'm definitely going to hear that because I did not allow anybody to come that close to me where I started to channel their voice.
That's interesting. I actually was at an investigation and I told a spirit that you could use my arm to write.
Mhm.
And I was answering questions from what I was hearing from them. And the lady there, it made peace with her because her mom and dad both passed away. And the things that I was writing, she could link to immediately because it's some of the stuff that she would know. I didn't know anything about it. And she said it makes perfect sense. And it actually gave her some closure. But that's before I ever had the Menaki rights. And that was the most draining of energy I have ever experienced in my life. I mean, it just felt like I didn't have sleep in 4 days.
Yeah, automatic writing can drain a lot out of you. I feel like scrying does too, but when I scry, I also allow, of course, I want to say the word and I forget it. When spirit kind of comes over you and transfiguration, where the face completely changes. I did one at a Masonic lodge 3 weeks ago, I think, and I have never had. It was basically like a Rolodex of faces. The faces just kept changing, but their mouths were moving the entire time. It was at an event that I almost called him his wrong name again. I told him I can't get his name right. Dustin Perry was running. And he was like, no, the entire time you were practically trying to crawl into that frame. I'm like, yeah, because they were moving their mouths. I said, luckily I got what they were saying before you ended the session. But he took a picture of the scrying session and posted it. And I'm in the picture, but I showed it to so many people when I was at Broadhead because I'm like, this doesn't look like me. Because like I said, I allow spirit in so close and everybody looked at the photo. They're like, that's not you. I'm like, no, that's me. I'm like, look at the blonde hair. That is me sitting right in front of the mirror. But
Me and actually Kat Armstrong, we were up in Galena at the outpost and we were scrying and she actually has a picture of me and it looks like I'm 98 years old. And I have a picture of her that looks she looks almost as old. And we were scrying that night in the outpost up there in Galena. And yeah, it can do some different stuff for sure. I've seen this person where her physical appearance has changed. Yep. I can agree with things like that. I've seen things like this happen. And, our mind can do some amazing stuff for sure. And you said you were reading Nate's mind that night where H.H. Holmes. Have you done astral projecting?
Yeah, so I've asked a couple people their opinions on it. They say that must be what I'm doing when I practice because like I said, I feel like I'm there. Like I can feel the ground under my feet. I'm in there. No, Ashley, Ash, the video I sent you is actually from my YouTube. That's when I went to the Shanley Hotel when it was the man's face that it turned into. This was at a Mason Lodge in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Sadly, I don't have a video of that one. Sorry. But um, yeah, most people have said I must be astral projecting, but I've astral projected before and I don't feel like I can put my hands on the walls as I'm walking down the halls. I can feel the walls. I feel everything under my feet. When I know when I've known that I've astral projected in the past, I've not been able to tangibly feel things, but when I practice, I do. So I'm not sure if that's astral projecting versus remote viewing. I just do things. I don't know the terms.
Remote viewing, you can normally just see. To me, it's seeing because I've done remote viewing as well. I've actually was on a podcast with a group of people one night, and I don't know if you can find it or not, but it was with the Wraith Hunters. And I was leading them down a path to a location that I've never even been there. And there ended up being a hut and stuff there. And I've never been to that place before in Texas ever. And I was helping them that night, and I could see things that before they even got there. So, and then to me, astral projecting, is like I do more of my astral projecting when I'm sleeping at night and being able to go into other dimensions And you can feel it just like a dream because you can control it, you can feel it, you can understand it. And sometimes you don't get answers for sure. Because there's been times I've just got like hieroglyphic signs when I was going through my Menaki rites. I was getting signs and I'd write them down when I got up so I didn't forget them.
Mm.
And me and the Reiki master was going through them and trying to figure it out. And we figured out the list of things that I've gotten written down are the things that I'm capable of doing. And I haven't even scratched the surface yet.
No, it's the same. I keep getting told that yeah, Ash, that's why I worry about practicing sometimes when Nate's in New Hampshire, because I don't know if he'll be able to bring me back if I get too deep. But I've been told the same thing as you. Like, I've not even scratched the surface of the gifts that I have. And I told Nate this a few months ago. And ever since I said that to him, I was like, no, I'm coming into more gifts that I don't even know about. Ever since I said that, people who didn't know that I've said that have like said the same thing to me in front of Nate. And he was like, nope, Morgan said that a little while ago.
And I even told you that when we were at Broadhead that
Yeah.
you're going to be opening up just like I was.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And like I said, it's sometimes it's like it feels like overload. It's like a download in your head, and you just got to stop and take a breath and start separating certain stuff at the time because sometimes it's too much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
But yeah, it can get very interesting. I mean, scrying, I've done that. I've even done tarot cards. I used to read tarot cards with Pam Harris on her show, Serene Divine. I was a co-host with her. And I would actually let her read her set of tarot cards first. And then I would lay mine flat down on my laptop. And when she got done, I'd read my section of the reading. And the funny thing about it is I would turn up the same card she would.
Yeah.
And we've got that on when we were doing it live. And, you know, that's pretty rare to be able to turn over some of the same cards. I mean, she has the same deck as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And we were using the same type of tarot cards. But to come up with the same thing is kind of rare. I use automatic writing many years. I don't have the ability. I just saying it happens. Sometimes I write my answers with left hand and hand.
He's forever in denial. I just let him live like that. It's fine.
I'd like to see him open up because I know he loves to debunk things, but I know he's more into trying to debunk it than. I mean, Nate goes for the scientific term of it, and that is great to try to understand it. But there's some things you just can't explain. And
yeah, but he, like you said, he goes more for trying to understand things. I think it's more of a coming from a place of trying to understand than it is necessarily debunking. But you have to debunk to try to prove things.
And it could be a conflict of interest with his guides trying to tell him to open up, and he's wanting to do it the scientific way. I have the same problem with the, yeah, I mean, I've seen some things as well. Yeah. So what's one thing you'd like to see in this paranormal field change that you, I know I see a lot of negative stuff, but what's one thing that you'd like to actually see change coming into it new?
Coming into it new, probably the negative attitudes that some people have, but also like the jealousy factor. There's enough room for everybody to be able to do their thing without people getting so like angry and their panties in a twist about what other people are doing. People are going to do some of the same things because there's a lot of people with abilities in the paranormal. There's going to be times where different types of abilities overlap. Like, in my opinion, I'd say kind of get over yourself. It's not that serious. There is enough room for everybody to do what they want to do.
And everybody actually does some things different at times. I mean, your abilities to be able to see certain things different than I do. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. There's, not at all. I mean, and being able to put the links together and stuff, because when I was going, like I said, through my Menaki rites, I was having dreams all the time. And I actually had Anubis come up to me and was explaining how to do crystals a night before an investigation. And what he showed me is what I did to the little boy that night, the next night that had the attachments, is what he showed me to do.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for him, I would have had no clue. And that's how I learned how to do entrapments and help that little boy that night. So, I mean, everybody's guides will teach you different. They will show you different things. And there's really no wrong way and there's really no right way. It's how your guides show you.
While they're rolling their eyes, yes. And going like this. But I agree with what you say completely because I don't know. I feel like sometimes certain people might rub the wrong way, but when I go to conventions, my favorite thing is I go up to people and like I said, I start talking to them. Sometimes I'll just start reading them organically, but I just love to ask them like, what do you do? Like, what are your abilities? How do you see them? And I've noticed, and I told Nate about it too, and I'm not sure he quite noticed them until I pointed them out. It's interesting because there's so many different trends. All these people that like have issues in the community with each other, you actually have so much in common because there's so many different trends in the paranormal. There's like histories of trauma, histories of domestic violence. There's
Mhm.
military, that's a huge one that goes across people. Adoption is actually a big one. Problems with addiction, whether it's yourself, close family. There's so many different trends.
And abuse.
Yep. Abuse, yep. And there's so many in that, and nobody's an expert. So even just having a conversation with someone, whether they're your favorite person or not, I'm sure there's something that you can learn from them, a little trick that they do, something that they've incorporated with how they do what they do. I just don't understand the bullying that I've seen go on to a certain point, and then just people not liking other people for absolutely no reason except for the fact that, like I said, maybe they're jealous because you're doing kind of the same thing. I, I'd say that would be the best thing to be able to change for the community if that was possible.
I can definitely agree with that. One of the things when I started doing shaman classes is the teacher would tell me, he says, what may work for you may not work for somebody else. But what works for you, keep adding to it
Yep.
because it makes you different. It makes you unique.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just don't get that either.
Yep.
Do you think that trauma, some of the abuse, and some of the things that people has gone through has activated the third sense?
To a certain point, yes, but then you also have to go back to what you believe and how you got here and what happened before you came to this earth this time. I very much believe you keep coming back to learn lessons you've not learned yet, or that you've been through, but you didn't learn your lesson quite the way you were supposed to. But no, I feel that certain people that go through these things, it's not their first time going through it. So I think it definitely does, to a certain degree, heighten their abilities. Um, because, like I said, if you just look at it, if you talk to anybody in the paranormal who's open enough to actually talk about themselves on that level, they've all been through it. Every single person I've talked to a certain degree, whether they admit it or not, has been through trauma. So I would most definitely say that definitely increases one's abilities or makes it so they're more prone to acknowledge it to a certain degree.
I will agree with that too. I will definitely agree with that. Have you been through your Akashic records yet?
I have not. I've seen some of my past lives, because typically I'll ask through meditation.
We were just about ready to talk about it, and he hits
Yep.
it.
Um, no, the past lives, I believe in that. Like I said, you go through certain things, and there was one that I went through, which, to a point I lived through in this life already. So not necessarily that it was a lesson that I needed to learn, but a pattern that did travel over. Because the first time it happened, it wasn't necessarily a purposeful thing, and it was just basically at that point I was like a single mother because for whatever reason, and this was like hundreds of years ago that this past life was, I was a single mother, and I was in this life as well. It's just that's not necessarily a lesson to be learned. It's just an interesting pattern that's gone on. Um, but no, past lives are interesting. The first one would have to be my one in Egypt that I first remembered because when I was in like the fifth grade, I could read and write hieroglyphics. I can't do it now, but I used to be able to. But that and So another thing I do is
That's
I
that's actually one of the first things I told you when I first met you is
Mhm.
you're linked to Egypt.
Yep. But also interestingly enough, so one of the things that I do, I know we were talking about automatic writing. I used to do that as well, but one thing I do is I will paint, but I go into a trance-like state when I paint certain things. And the first one I did, and it took me forever to realize it, I was in high school and I painted Nefertiti, who I've always just been so fascinated with. And I was telling Nate about it one night because he's my nerdy man that I love so much, but that man's got a bunch of knowledge about everything. And I was like, no, it was like my first painting that I think I might have done it was Nefertiti. I said, but she's not the way that she's ever depicted. She has much fairer skin and she has very light blue eyes. And he was like, well, it's actually a very little known fact. There's a singular writing about her from that time, and that's exactly how she's described.
That's interesting that you're able to see that. It's like me going to see an Anubis when
Mhm.
Anubis popped up, and even with Gwen, she's linked to Bassett, and I've told her that, and she doesn't understand how she's linked to it yet. But I can't tell her all the links because it'll change her way of thinking and her path, her chosen path. So she's got to learn it on her own. And even me and her has gone back to Ireland in our past lives, and
Mhm.
I've linked some of me and her together in our past lives, me and her,
Yeah.
and talked about some things, and she sees some of it, but she hasn't got it all linked together yet.
It's
And,
interesting you mentioned Bastet because I know I'm linked to her, but also Anubis keeps trying to poke his head into my world, but I'm just not ready to embrace that.
oh, Anubis, all the things he will teach you with crystals is amazing. I mean, he shows me diagrams. I actually draw after I see him. I'll sit there and I'll sketch them out and I'll put them down so I don't forget how to do it. But he shows me some really cool stuff. I've even had Michael. I felt energy shifts all the time, and I don't know if you can feel an energy shift when it happens, but I felt energy shifts before, and I've seen Michael appear in front of me, and he says, "You're going to need this and this," and he hands me a shield and a sword, and he says, "You will need this in your future." So I'm linked to Michael. I'm linked to Anubis. Hecate's one. I've seen Solomon after I've dealt with a jinn, a really bad jinn that was fucking with me. Um, 'Cause I actually entrapped him and buried him across the street in the yard. And there's a spot in the yard across the street that does not grow grass anymore. And yeah, because it followed me home from an investigation, and it's right when I started, and I didn't know all the things about I should know at the time. So I was wet behind the ears, I should say.
Mhm.
Followed me home from the investigation, and next thing you know, my four-wheel drive truck locks up, tears up the transmission for no reason whatsoever down the middle of the road. And 3 days later, I lose my job. Well, I was sitting in a room in my house because I've got an older house, and my blocks on my house are made of limestone, which is a conductor. I have things pass through here all the time. And I was actually looking at a wood grain door, and I was seeing images of castles in deserts and things like that that would be linked to Solomon and the jinns inside the door, and it was moving in waves. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've got to stop, turn the lights off, switch things around. Am I seeing this? Am I seeing what I'm seeing? And I was actually still seeing, no matter how I adjusted the door, twisted the door, everything, it was still making the images in the grain in that hardwood door. And then when I left that room and went into my bedroom, I heard her growl. And I didn't even have a dog at the time. And it was like a nasty growl. And the only way you can get rid of it is you call an Islamic jinn to come and get it. And then after you tell him to help you get rid of it,
Mhm.
you got to tell him to go home.
Yeah.
And some people don't understand things like that either. Michael's man does not
Maybe he
need
wants a sword.
it. But yeah. What's one thing that you would like to see come about in your abilities 100%? besides your confidence? I know you struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
Nate's gonna.
something that,
Sorry.
like,
Go ahead.
like something that really going to pique your interest once you say, "Oh," and the light bulb comes on.
I'm not sure. All I can think to say, and Nate's gonna be so mad at me that I say it, is my accuracy. Even though he tells me all the time, "No, you're like 95% accurate." I've not seen somebody do that, but for me, I'm a overthinker, perfectionist. I want the 100%. I don't know. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I'm not sure.
I know some things that I've experienced. It's 100% is never ever going to be, because sometimes we can't tell that 1%
Hmm.
because we're not supposed to know it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know, Nathaniel. That's my constant struggle because I want to be.
Yeah. And it's like some people ask me, can you tell me what my future brings? I see things in your future. I see flashes of images of people's futures. But am I going to tell you? No, because I can't, I am not allowed to change your destiny. You
Yeah.
have to choose yourself. I can give you hints to maybe, hey, you might want to look out for this, but to actually tell you, I'm not going to,
Yeah.
because that will alter my destiny, and I don't want that.
No, I get that. I've seen things in people's futures. It's just I don't know it's their future. It's just something that's shown to me when I'm in the middle of giving them a reading. So I tell them, but it's things that they're just like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And then they get back to me, like I said, like a day, a month, a year later, and they're like, oh, remember this thing from your reading? I'm like, no, not a clue. So I see some things in the future, but I don't know they're necessarily things in the future. But also, when typically that happens when I'm using cards, and I read my cards in a very unconventional way. I'll tell you afterwards what I call it, just because I just don't
Everybody,
like to say my method on.
everybody's got a different slang for terminology.
Yeah. But the way I do it is I have people shuffle their cards. They spread it out on a table in like this huge circle, and I just pull cards. I don't even look at them, and I read it. So I get so in the moment because I'm moving the energy that I'm kind of on an energetic high, and I don't remember anything that I
Hmm.
give in readings unless it's something that like was kind of crazy and I remember.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't see all of the comment
Oh,
Nate just had. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. But also technically, like if I felt it was from the future, I'd be like, it depends on the path that you're on.
right.
Just because I see it now doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
True.
I will, Ash.
Now, Ash, if she tells you something from the future, it could alter you something different. It could give you a different outcome too.
Yeah, but she's pretty well tapped in. She knows that it all kind of depends on her path. She has a good understanding of everything.
Yeah, it's like I said, sometimes, I mean, I've seen things that when I started getting into the paranormal in general before, like you said, pushing things away because of things I've seen. But now, after I embrace it, you know, I don't care who knows.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk to people like you and try to understand the way they do things and see the way they think, pick up on some of their stuff, and etc. And sometimes people don't even have to say anything around me, and I'll pick up things that they don't even realize.
Yeah.
Changes paths. Yeah, it does. It can change your path. It does. This is true for sure. Well, that is interesting for sure. What is something you practice the most right now?
What do you mean exactly?
What skill set or gifts do you practice the most with?
Um, I would say right now just the way I practice with Nate because I want to connect with spirit a bit stronger. Because for me it's much easier, like I said, when energy's moving and everything, like if I do readings with cards. So just connecting with spirit on a better level, just because I'm trying to understand how they come through sometimes, because the main way that I get a lot of my things, other than seeing them and like walking through their homes and stuff, I get a lot of pop culture references. So it's very interesting, especially when the spirits do not match the time period for the references that they're giving me. Like the monkey that Nate mentioned a while ago, that was for the USS Constitution.
Kind of like they're messing with you, trying to lead you on a different path.
Well, it's not that they're trying to lead me on a different path. It's just how they help me with the messages. Like the monkey that I picked up on. Technically, the monkey lived. Well, I don't know about lived, but she was known for being on the USS Constitution. But the time that I was shown this pop culture reference, I was shown the movie The Pirates of the Caribbean, specifically that exact type of monkey from the movie. But when I was interacting with spirits during the time that the USS Constitution was like, an active ship, and the monkey wasn't around till the 50s, so the time frames don't always line up. So I would say that's the main thing I'm trying to practice, because the pop culture references make sense. It's just I need to figure out how they make sense.
Okay, I can see that. I can understand that.
That and trying to get more comfortable with just accepting what spirit's telling me without having to be like, nope, if you show me 3 times, I'll say it, because that's a little obscure.
Yeah, I can understand that. So I take it sometimes when you pick up an object, you'll see images as well.
Yep. But also, like, before we started the podcast, you mentioned that mirror, and I was telling you what I was feeling from the mirror, and you're like, yep, nope, that's accurate.
Yep, you were right on with it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Have you experienced time lapses or jumps besides what we talked about earlier, like a shift in time?
Not really. Just kind of like the only time I really experience different times is when I remote view, I guess is the best way. Not remote view, but the astral projection. Because I've walked through houses just trying to practice and pick up on the locations where there's 3 different timelines all in the same room, but they don't even acknowledge each other because they don't know that they're there. So I'm experiencing all 3 points in time at my point in time. Some of them notice that I'm there, but they don't notice each other because they're from different times.
Okay, I get that. I can get that. I can understand that. I know me and Gwen, this is an example. Me and Gwen were actually talking on the phone one time on my lunch hour, and it was at the end of my lunch. And I was getting ready to say, okay, I got to go because my lunch is over. And next thing you know, the guy from work's like, what do you mean your lunch is over? It's time to go home. It went from 1 o'clock to 4:30 in a blink of an eye. I experienced and Gwen experienced the same time when we were talking on the phone.
Yeah.
And it was really weird. That was one of the experiences I've had with that. I've also had, when I was driving in a vehicle, I was down by the river, and I was actually on Indian ground, and I was talking to 3 other people on a video chat, and I laid my phone in the passenger seat so I can still talk to them and drive. And I pulled up to a stop sign, and next thing you know, I'm 2 miles down the road in the ditch as soon as I pulled away from the stop sign. And I was like, hey, I got to get off the phone. He's like, why? I'm in the ditch. He's like, what? You're sitting here talking to us the whole time. I couldn't have fell asleep because I would have drove through a small community section in and out, or I'd have hit something and tore up my car. But the only thing it did is I slid across the intersection and went in the ditch in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
I was also coming back from another location in the car, and I seen the exit plain as day. I said, my exit. And the exit is so lit up, you can't miss it. You cannot miss it. And all of a sudden, everything around my car turns black, except enough where you can see the lines on the road. And I look in the rearview mirror and I see this car going like this. And I'm looking for the exit to get off. I'm 22 miles away, past the town that I was going to, past another town, and drove through a construction zone and didn't even know it.
I guess I do that to a certain point. So I noticed it's when I get into a meditative state. So when I get into a meditative state, I drive all the time, and I don't necessarily remember driving. Um, and I'll be at the location. I don't remember driving there at all. But it's more like a meditative state. But also, I will, which probably shouldn't do it, but I don't do it intentionally. When I'm driving in that state, I sometimes pull myself out of myself, and I am like above my car watching myself drive.
Mhm.
But Nate had a comment that said, I guess our practice last night actually kind of touches on that too. So I don't know how I was doing, and there was some confusion when I was first practicing, and because it was the location, but not quite the location. He had a location picked out, but I ended up reading three different locations at once because the owners of the location he picked out owned three different locations. So I was jumping around between three different spots all at the same time.
Interesting. I can see that too. As in the fact, if one thing I'll say this, with the link that you and Nate have already in the bond that you guys got, practicing sometimes with Nate would probably be like kindergarten work to you. Does that make sense? Because your energy meshes so well, you can read each other. Does that?
Yes, but we're also, so our minds work very similar but different. So there's actually a lot of times where we will butt heads just because of miscommunication, because our brains know exactly what we're thinking, but we're kind of like go this way with it. But we're also, he's water and I'm fire, and we're both stubborn as hell. So it should be kindergarten work. It should be.
Well, I think that's the difference between men and women. I mean, I know another person that's very stubborn and just as stubborn as I am. And sometimes that's a good thing. And, yeah, we can be on the same page, but it's kind of like, to me, like reading a book. To me, if they were to be different, it'd be a little more of a challenge to me. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it does.
Because like I said, I've experienced things with that bond, and I know you guys got that bond because you're well connected. And, I'm really surprised you haven't seen the part of time that's stopped. To not look forward and pay attention to the information given. Well, like I said, I know that Nate's got abilities, and I'm just waiting for him to wake up with them as well. So
You and me both, brother. I tell him all the time. I'm like, if you just tapped in, he's like, not that I've got abilities.
yeah, the ones that sometimes the denial, the longer you put it off, it hits you like a freight train.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, and then it's just going to be like, how do I say the best terminology? Mind screwed.
Yeah. But I'm not going to try to force him into doing anything that he wants. Every once in a while, I'll mention to him that I know he has abilities, but I don't try to force him to hone in on them.
So the first day I met you and that we were talking, I mentioned you were linked to Egypt and etc. So what did you pick up on me when we first met?
I'm not going to lie. I don't try to pick up on people, and I was trying not to because I was nervous because we had our investigation that night. I will just say I could, okay, you asked earlier if I could feel energy.
It's a learning curve. I won't be because I just research it.
One day he'll admit it.
I love Nate's comments.
Yeah. But no, I guess earlier you asked if I read energy or people. I guess I read energy too, because all I could feel that you just had a very warm, welcoming energy. But I know that that's not something that you necessarily put out for everybody.
Very true. That is very true. I keep that circle very close knit, and once you're in that circle, it's like you've got my trust and don't break it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very like that, because some people think, I'm just that hard ass once in a while, and the fact is, if you get into the circle, you'll find out I'm just kind of probably a big teddy bear.
Yeah, but you got some high walls, but it's for reasons. Walls isn't necessarily the right word. I just can't think of a better way to describe it. You've got some high walls for very good reasons,
Hmm.
multiple reasons.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely for sure. Definitely for sure. I will not deny that one bit. And I think it's great. I love seeing people come to see their gifts, be able to understand them, and learn more. And like I said, even talking with each other like we do tonight, I think it's great to be able to get on the same playing field and to be able to have that communication.
It
And that's
definitely
a good
is.
thing. And that's definitely a good thing. And like you said, more people should be that way. And just think if people would share that information more with each other, how much farther this field would be.
Yep. Especially with like, even if you wanted to be selfish and kind of look at it at your own aspect. When I talk to people and they tell me different things that they can do, that makes me go, oh, I wonder if that's something that I could do because I've not quite done that before. And in all actuality, it could help you build your gifts even more because you hear something that you've not heard of before, and it makes you test the waters to see if it's something you can also do, even if you do it differently.
One thing I've noticed when I've been taking shaman classes, because there's Wiccans there, there's Peruvian shamans, there's regular shamans, there's Reiki masters all there. And the fact of being around those people all the time or being with them, you pick up things from them without even having to talk to them
Yep.
because you're picking up on that energy and you're picking up on stuff. And one of the Peruvian shamans was sitting there explaining how they did things with rocks in nature one night. And it's the same thing to me as what Anubis explained to me in my dream. But they use crystals and they're using nature and rocks. And it just meshed together. And it was awesome. I was like, man, I just had an epiphany. It's the same thing, just a different style. Now I can look at it two different versions and understand it completely.
Yep.
So that's awesome. Well, Morgan, we are 13 minutes past the hour. Conversation has been great. It's awesome having you on here tonight. And, you know, I'm looking forward to see what you can do in the future. I'm going to keep an eye on you for sure. And, you know, it's definitely interesting talking to you. And like I said, you will definitely evolve because the things that I've seen when I've been around you just that one day, you've got some good skills coming.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
And if you ever need help with anything, don't be afraid to holler out and ask. You know, I'm always here. And, you know, hopefully maybe one of these days, me, you, and Nate can team up and have an investigation somewhere together.
Yeah, I'd like that, and I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Everybody have a great night. I will post my next guest sometime this week here because I haven't got the flyer put up yet, but I will post it, and it will probably be the last show of season 4. And then I'm going to take a break for a little while as well, and might have a few specials throughout a couple months here, and you'll see some live investigations and me actually teaming up with some other teams as well, like Haunted Happy Hour, Eternal Paranormal. Let's see, Jamie Lynn Keller. And if I can't say the other person because otherwise they'd know I'll be coming. So I kind of want to keep that a surprise. But everybody, have a great rest of your night. And thank you, Morgan, for coming on the show. It was great to have you on. And we'll definitely have you on again in the future.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right, everybody, we're out of here. Night.